OSINT or open source intelligence is one of my favorite subjects. We will discuss the concept and evolution of OSINT and the application of OSINT as well. OSINT is amazing. Not only government uses it, but the private investigators, law enforcement agencies, and the marketers also use it. Some people are doing OSINT, but they might don't know this defined terms of their act. OSINT, if I just simply define, it's refers to all information that is publicly available, plain and simple, nothing fancy term or what to define it. But the the United States Department of Defense, defines OSINT or open source intelligence is an intelligence that is produced from publicly available information, and it is collected, exploited, and disseminated in a timely manner to an appropriate audience for the purpose of addressing a specific intelligence requirement. Well, I personally don't know when in the history this term OSINT proposed and who proposed it, but we do know that OSINT was there even before its term or proper techniques were defined. People use it. People used to use it. People still uses it. It's like a common human act of instinct. In modern terms, the OSINT was introduced during the World War II as an intelligence tool when the United States established the Foreign Broadcast Information Service, or FBIS, to monitor publicly available information that related to supporting its troop operation at that time. So now let's move further and then let's see what we have. All right, perfect. So we need to discuss the difference between the data, information, and the knowledge, and why it is very important when we talk about the OSINT. So let's just quickly recap it, because this is the thing that I think if you have studied computer science, you might have already understood this concept, or maybe if you are used to doing the electronic or electrical communication, then obviously this is the term that we usually teach in college, the people usually teach in college. Anyway, so based on the definition of data from the tech differences, data is raw, unanalyzed, unorganized, unrelated, uninterpreted material which is used to derive information after analysis. Okay, so essentially, data is plain facts, observations, statistics, characters, symbols, numbers, images, and more that are collected and can be used for analysis. So, data left alone is not very informative, and in that sense, it is relatively meaningless. But it gains purpose and direction after it is interpreted to derive significance. On the other hand, the information is a set of data that has already been processed, analyzed, and structured in a meaningful way to become useful. Once data is analyzed or processed and gains relevance, it becomes information that is fully reliable, certain, and useful. Now, let's take this example. What are these? Just numbers? Do they make any sense? No, they are just the data, raw and unorganized. We need the right tool and the techniques to process it. By just looking at this, I can say that this is the hex numbers. Let's process it. So on Google, just search hex to text because I know that this is the hex numbers and I want to convert it into text. So let's just process it. So there you can see I just provide the input. I need to convert it hex to numbers. All right, so we are talking about OSINT. Now it makes sense. We have processed the data and converted it into the information that we, being a human being, can easily read or understand. Now this is what I was talking about. The data, it need to convert, or it need to process or analyze, and then convert into the information. And once you use the right tool and a technique, then the data can be converted into an information which is valuable, which carries the information or some significance value. Anyway, so based on my experience, I decided that this is hex number. Someone can also give this answer by just using their intuition. This is knowledge. When you experience the information, you gather knowledge. So the knowledge is a combination of information, experience, and the intuition. All right, now let's move further. If I just, before going further, if I just summarize that, for example, this is data, all right, and then you send into the process or some formula, some technique or anything, or maybe just tool, and then it gets, and after an analysis you get the information, and when you add your intuition, knowledge, and these things, intuition and experience, then you get the knowledge. Plain and simple, nothing fancy. All right, so we have types and categories. So, the very first term is the open versus closed source intelligence. As I said, that the open source intelligence is analyzing all the data available, publicly available or openly available, while on the other hand, the closed source intelligence is basically the closed sources of information are those with restricted access. For example, police crime recording systems, financial intelligence. So usually the intelligence agencies, they adopt or they use different techniques to gather the closed source intelligence up, as well as the open source intelligence as well. So since we are not talking about the closed source intelligence in this course, so let's just skip it and we will focus on the open source intelligence. So typically there are four categories of open information and the intelligence. First one is the open source data. So this is generic data coming from a primary source, for example, including the satellite images, telephone call data, and the metadata. Data sets, survey data, photographs, and audio or video recordings that have recorded an event. And then we have the open source information. This is also a generic data set that has undergone some filtering first to meet a specific criterion or need. This data can also called a secondary source information or just secondary source data. For example, including the books about a specific subject, articles, dissertations, artwork, and the interviews. And then we have the open source intelligence. This includes all the information that has been discovered, filtered, and designated to meet a specific need or purpose. This information can be used directly in any intelligence context. OSINT can be defined in a nutshell as the output of open source material processing. And then we have the OSINT V, which is also known as the validated OSINT. Now, this is OSINT with a high degree of certainty. The data should be confirmed or verified using a non-OSINT source or from a highly reputable OSINT source. This is essential as some outside adversary may spread inaccurate OSINT information with the intent to mislead the OSINT analysis. A good example of this is when a TV station broadcasts live the arrival of a president to another country. Such information is OSINT, but it has a large degree of certainty. So again, if I summarize, first one is OSD, which is the primary source, for example, the satellite images and all. And then we have open source information, which is the secondary source. So this is OSINF. Secondary source, it means that someone has analyzed, for example, someone has taken this information and wrote a book. So this is the secondary source, which obviously refers to the primary source as well. And then we have the OSINT, which is the open source intelligence, and then we have the validated OSINT with the high certainty, or with the verified source and all. So this is the basic introduction of the open source intelligence. What is the term, data, information, and all. And then now we have to see the roadmap of the OSINT and how to actually perform the OSINT, what steps are to perform the OSINT, and every other things. So let's start the second lecture of this particular course.